Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In meeting 15, we're going to talk about qualitative research proposal in ELT. What is a research proposal? A research proposal is essentially a written plan for a project that will be submitted to others for evaluation. At most universities, before conducting a study, anyone conducting a research must write a proposal, which specifically describes what he or she will do and why it should be done, or how he or she will do it, and how he or she will interpret the results. In short, the proposal specifies his or her plans before the study can be conducted. And since it is the plan for conducting a study, writing a research proposal is the first step in conducting and publishing research. The reasons for writing a research proposal. Although it constitutes only the first step in the research process, writing a research proposal is very important for two reasons. First, a proposal describes the process and procedures the researcher will use. In the proposal, the whole project crystallizes into a concrete form. The researcher's ideas and insights are translated into step-by-step plans for discovering new knowledge. Sharing it to colleagues or a committee will provide an opportunity for the researcher to obtain feedback before implementing the study. This feedback can be useful for improving the proposed study. Second, a research proposal is the only means a prospective researcher can use to ask for recognition and funding of a particular project. Since the proposal is the only document through which a researcher demonstrates that he knows what he is seeking and how to successfully complete the planned project, it is the only instrument he can use to get approval for conducting his or her project. In a university context, for instance, students are required to obtain approval of their proposals from a committee of supervising professors. In industries, a proposal is a main, if not the only document one should submit to funding agencies to obtain grant money to pay for the cost of his research. Anatomy of a research proposal. You can take a look at the title page. Write this in accordance with the specification provided by the university or organization to which the proposal is addressed. This figure, or what we call as figure 1, is the typical preliminary research proposal. We have the title, introduction, literature review, conceptual framework, method, and expected outcomes, timeline and budget, and last but not least, references. As it is previously mentioned, a research proposal is a plan for a project. Later, when the project is finished, the researcher should report it in what is called with the research report or research paper. A research paper usually has 5 chapters, with well-established sections in each chapter. The use of such a standardized format will help readers easily find specific types of information they look for in the chapters and sections. In general, all research reports begin with the information provided in its proposal. That is why the proposal is similar to the first 3 chapters of the research paper, except that it is written in the future tense. In the proposal, the researcher might write something like a set of questionnaire and semi-structured interview will be used to collect the data. while in the report it would be changed to a set of questionnaire and semi-structured interview were used to collect the data. In other words, with the exception of tense, the proposal is identical with the first three chapters of the research report. Since the research proposal is identical to the first three chapters of the research report, it will be a significant help for a researcher to report his study. He needs just to convert the materials in the proposal to write the first three chapters, add the results and discussion section in which the results of the completed study are presented and analyzed, and put the conclusion and recommendation at the end. Now let's take a look at the research proposal models. Research proposal could be generally classified into two major models: the preliminary model and the standard model. The preliminary research proposal, as suggested by the name, is typically written before creating the longer standard one. Thus, writing a good preliminary proposal opens the doors to proceeding with the project and digging deeper into the planning. Also, a preliminary proposal is very brief, usually written in 5 to 6 paragraphs in 2 pages. It typically contains much of the same information as the standard version. The difference lies just in the fact that it's a lot less detailed than the standard one. The preliminary research proposal is generally used to attract other people's interest, the members of the committee. To evaluate a new research proposal, a faculty sitting in a committee often prefers reading a preliminary proposal for its brevity. As shown in Figure 1, a preliminary proposal includes only the main points of what the author will do, why it should be done, how he will do it, and how he will interpret the result with minimum supporting detail. Written in a brief paragraph, the introduction section describes the general topic area to be studied, the background to the research problem, the research purpose and problem, and justification for studying the problem. The literature review, written in 1 or 2 paragraphs, presents the major schools of thought on the topic. A brief review of the relevant current main findings reported on two chosen topic, and restatement of the research problem or questions to show how it fits into this larger picture. Next, in a short paragraph called Conceptual Framework, the writer's ideas and findings in the literature are linked to show how the research problem will be handled and what the research results will contribute to the topic under study. This paragraph is ended with a hypothesis to be tested. In the last 2 paragraphs, the research design, population, sample, instruments, and the analysis techniques are briefly described. The last paragraph is used to outline the expected results, how they will be interpreted, and how they will fill the gaps or enrich literature. In a standard proposal, the expected outcome subsection is placed in Chapter 1 called Research Significances. See Figure 1, Figure 2. This subsection focuses on the implication of the proposed study, such as how the study's result will affect future research, theory, counseling, policy, etc. Thus, this section is written focusing on how the results of the study will benefit others. This subsection is also used to pinpoint any weaknesses of the proposed research and why they were not addressed. Now let's take a look at the figure 2, the typical standard research proposal. You start with the title page, Chapter 1 Introduction, containing background, statement of topic area, statement of research problem and justification for studying it, research objectives, research significances, research scope, and operational definitions. In Chapter 2, Literature Review, containing summary and synthesis of the major schools of thought on the topic and a review of the relevant current main findings reported on the chosen topic. Conceptual framework links the research variables which has been specified based on the findings in the literature so that the research question and hypothesis could be explicitly stated in the next subsection. It also shows how the present proposed research could provide solution to the problem so that the expected contribution to the topic under study, research significances, can be stated. Specific research question and hypothesis to be tested. In Chapter 3, Method, containing research design, participants, who, how many, characteristic, male, female, proficiency level, native language, and etc. Sampling technique. Materials containing what equipment, what setting, what data collecting instruments. In the procedures, we have to know how the treatment to be administered is, how or when the testing to be conducted is, and what analysis techniques to be employed. The timeline and the budget and references will follow those three chapters. Some institutions may expect the description of the timeline and budget. The proposal is ended with the reference in which all sources cited in the proposal body are listed using a certain style. For example, APA, MLA, Harvard, etc. The content of a standard research proposal is essentially similar to those of a preliminary proposal. The only difference is that the points in the standard research proposal are supported with more factual data, relevant citations, and arguments. Therefore, if a preliminary proposal is commonly 2 pages long, a standard research proposal could cover more than 10 pages. Outlines of chapters and sections. Number 1, title. In a standard research proposal, the title is written on the title page together with the name and other required information about the author. The proposal title should be short and explanatory. A good title gives a clear and concise description of the scope and nature of the research. A title could be stated in one of the 4 types: nominal, compound, full sentence, and question. But the most usually used is the nominal title. The title should not exceed 16 words and must include keywords which allow bibliographers to index the study in proper categories. As a general guide, the words forming the title should indicate major variables or theoretical issues to be considered in the study, nature of the research, descriptive, correlational, experimental, survey, or action research, and the target population. Pardede in 2015, for instance, titled his study using the nominal type Pre-Surface EFL Teachers' Perception of Edmodo Use as a complementary learning tool. This title indicates that the study focuses on pre-service EFL teachers' perception of Edmodo use as a complementary learning tool, measure variable. It could be a descriptive survey because it deals with perception, research nature, and concerns with pre-service EFL teachers as the population. Number two, table of contents. The table of contents should locate each section and major subdivision of the proposal. In most circumstances, the table of contents should remain simple. No division beyond the first subheading is needed. If the body of the proposal contains illustration, graphs, or tables, they too should appear in the list of tables or graphs or illustrations which is incorporated into or follows the table of contents. Number 3, Chapter 1, Introduction. The introduction section consists of four subsections: a background, statement of topic areas, covering the problem in a broad scope, and specific problem to be studied, reasons why it was important to study. For example, by showing gaps in research and how it applied to the larger field of research. Research objectives, significances of the study, research scope, and definition of operational terms. The background information is used to identify and describe one or more of the contexts: philosophical, historical, social, economic, temporal, political, technological, gender, and etc. required by the reader to understand the research problem and its significance. Sufficient background information reflects the author's understanding of the research problem to be studied and stimulates confidence in the overall quality of the analysis and findings. A research topic is the broad subject matter addressed in a study. A research problem is the educational issue, a difficult or conflict to be eliminated, a condition to be improved, a concern to handle, a troubling question, a theoretical or practical controversy, or a gap that exists in scholarly literature addressed in a study. The objective or purpose is a single statement or paragraph that explains what the study intends to accomplish. The significance of the study subsection creates a perspective for looking at the problem. The next subsection of the introduction, research scope, describes the limitation and finite scope of the study, which is often imposed by time and budget constraint. The operational definition subsection is used to clarify the meaning of special terms used in the research. The introduction chapter 1 is essentially a mini version of the much larger review of the literature chapter 2 and can be thought of as highlighting certain segments or pieces of it. Chapter 2, Literature Review, Conceptual Framework and Hypothesis. A literature review is a search, summary, and evaluation of the available past and current literature related to the research problem. In research, the conceptual framework describes the researcher's consideration of how the interconnection of a particular variable in his study. The research question stated after the conceptual framework is essentially similar to those stated in Chapter 1, Part C. A research hypothesis is a prediction of the expected outcome of the study. A good hypothesis contains two variables, the independent and dependent. The The independent variable is the one the researcher controls, and a dependent variable is the one he observes and or measures the result. In an experimental study, the hypothesis is written this way. If blah 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 the independent variable is provided, then the dependent variable will happen. For examples, if my reading classes start using the SQ3 or method, teaching using SQ3 or is the independent variable, it will significantly increase the class reading achievement in reading comprehension. Reading achievement is the dependent variable, will increase. Based on this, the hypotheses are formulated as follows. Null hypothesis. The use of SQ3 or method will not significantly increase the class reading achievement in reading comprehension. Alternative hypothesis or working hypothesis. The use of SQ3 or method will significantly increase the class reading achievement in reading comprehension. In a correlational study, the hypothesis is written this way. There is a significant correlation between the independent variable and the dependent variable. For example, there is no significant correlation between the time length of using the internet with the level of students' interest in using blogs to develop writing. There is a significant correlation between the time length of using the internet with the level of the students' interest in using blogs to develop writing. Chapter 3, Research Methods. This chapter or section describes the basic plans of the proposed research. It usually begins with a few short introductory paragraphs that restate purpose and research question. This chapter begins with the restatement of the research purpose and research question because they are the most essential elements of a study, so that all other elements should be in agreement with them. Research method or design. Subsection briefly but concisely describes the research design to be used. One or two sentences will suffice for this. This subsection of participant population sample describes the population accurately and explain what technique is used to determine the sample. Material subsection describes the place and time setting, the equipment, and the instruments to be employed to collect the data. The procedure section briefly but concisely describes the treatment, testing, and data analysis technique. Timeline and budget. Some institutions may expect the description of the timeline, which shows how the author plans to complete the study by the due date. It is important to make sure that the timeline is realistic, flexible, and allows extra time for the diversion and changes that often take place in a study. References. The proposal is ended with the reference, in which only used factual material that does not belong to the author is listed using a certain style, APA, MLA, Harvard, etc. The LT field generally employs APA style for citing and referencing. Editing the research proposal. Just like the production of other pieces of writing, the writing of a research proposal is a process involving a series of steps to follow up to the production of the final work. First, the proposal has the chapter of introduction, literature review, and methodology, plus the section of timeline and references. Second, the quality of writing is appropriate. Thus, edit the common errors by breaking very long sentences into some shorter ones. Finishing the first editing is still necessary to make the second and third editing to make sure that the proposal is of high quality.